Can you hear me now?
Can hear really good.
Sounds. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great, dear friend. So how you pronounce your name?
Pardon?
How do you pronounce your name?
Francis.
Okay, Francis. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Mr. Mullen, your life sounds like a movie. But what are you doing at the time?
Well, I'm sorry I was, got caught in traffic. So I'm home and, prepared to do the interview.
So what are you doing at the moment?
I'm just nothing, just really, you talking about as far as my life and work?
Yeah.
Well, I do a number of things. I do public speaking, and I work for the, also a part of the Range Memorial Foundation. And I'm also a part of the Silent Warrior Foundation too. So I do quite a few things.
What are you doing for the Silent Warrior Foundation?
Well, the Silent Warrior Foundation is the foundation that's set up to help soldiers who, special operations soldiers, Navy SEALs, Rangers, anybody who worked in the special operations arena. We help them if they need, money, or they may have problems. They need like support dogs. We raise funds for support dogs. And so it's a charitable organization. We give to the veteran, those who need special treatment, like the hyperbaric treatment and things like that. And we host what we call we host what we call a Whiskeys and War Story to help raise funds. We hold it every year, and each Whiskeys and War Story we represent a certain era. Like when I was asked to be a part of it, they did Operation Urgent Fury, which was the invasion of Grenada. And they invited us out, myself and a few other veterans who fought in the Grenada War. And they interviewed us. It's just like a Johnny Carson type setting. They interview us, about our experience. And then we raise funds. They do a silent auction. They have things they auction off. And 1 year we raised pretty close to over $80,000. And every bit of it goes to helping the veterans out.
Wow. You have now a Muslim tactical magazine. Did you play survival as a kid?
Well, it's funny, as far as like Tactical Milsim magazine, that started off, I don't know if you ever heard of a sport called airsoft, right? So airsoft is, at that time, it's pretty big here in the United States. It's real popular over in Europe and also over there in the Philippines and Japan. And so I was part of this organization by Best of USA Marketing, John Liu. And they invited myself out and Colonel Danny McKnight of Black Hawk Down fame. And so we go out to these events and we do force on force, these games. And we raise funds. Like one year we raised something like $10,000 for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. So I go out there, to mentor, to coach our future generation of young men and women. So it's a lot of fun. So anyway, start off as a young man had a magazine, right? And he was getting ready to join the FBI. And he said, you know what, Max, I was originally going to sell a magazine, but I want to give it to you because I know it'll be in good hands. And so I took over the magazine. So I changed the name of it from Tactical Airsoft to Tactical Milsim. And so when we did the name change, Tactical Milsim covers all forms of training, from UTM to force on force, to miles devices, to all sorts of training for military and civilian. We also did stories on special operators. We did stories on survival techniques and so forth. So we broadened the magazine. It was originally, it went out bi-monthly and it was a full color magazine. But then after, the change of the election, the economy went kind of soft there in America. And so you know that the life of a magazine is the advertisers. And so the advertisers had to bail out because it's all about saving money. But one thing that I refused to do with the magazine was to compromise the quality of it. So we kept it the full color magazine. So we got to the point where we had to go to a digital platform. So we went and called it Tactical Media Group. And so we still go out, we do reviews on equipment, tactical equipment, training. And so we do it that way. And so we have all the old issues online, right? We have our back issues online. at our website. And the thing about the magazine, we had some really good writers. We had Dalton Fury, Tom Gray, who wrote the New York Times bestseller, Kill Bin Laden. I served with Tom as a Ranger instructor. We served together, really good friend. He wrote the book, Kill Bin Laden, which was the New York Times #1 bestseller. He was inducted to the Ranger Hall of Fame and a distinguished member of the Ranger Training Brigade, which is a Hall of Fame for Ranger instructors. He wrote for the magazine. And we also were the first ones to do a story on Nick Irvin, the sniper, the Reaper. We're the first one to do a story on him. I had a former Delta operator writing for the magazine, so it was a really good quality magazine. And we were before our time. You know, we even covered the border issue way before it even became a big issue now.
Which
So that's
issue?
Say again?
Which issue?
Well, what I'll do is I'll give you the link where you can check out all our magazines in PDF format, and also the one we did on the border.
But do you play with Muslim? Do you play old wars like the Vietnam reenactment? Do you do reenactments too?
Well, we really don't do a reenactment. I'll do a reenactment, but what we did, we hosted in 2021. In 2020, we hosted the Sante Raiders. The Sante Raiders conducted a raid into North Vietnam back in 1970 to rescue American POWs. And it was a commando team that was formed up by volunteers. It was led by Colonel Bull Simons, who's a legend in the special operations and special forces. They did the raid, they trained up in Florida, then they deployed to Thailand. From Thailand, they flew into the Sante Citadel. It was a surprise raid. The North Vietnamese army didn't know they were coming. They did the raid, they killed a whole bunch of suspected Chinese soldiers on objective, and they extracted out with no casualties. But the only thing was wrong was that they moved the prisoners, I think around a month before the raid happened. But one thing about that raid, it forced the North Vietnamese army to put all the POWs together because they were scared of another raid. It's one of the most successful raids in the history of our country, but it was a failure because there was no POWs inside the compound. So what we did, they're doing a documentary called 27 Minutes Over Sante. It's a full documentary that recounts from the planning to the inception, to the execution of the mission, to the return of the mission. And it's a story about the mission, and never before told, a lot of interviews of things that happened that people didn't know about. And so we hosted the Sante Raiders, and so we were asked to participate to help with this documentary. So we filmed the documentary out there in Arizona. They did a half mock-up of the objective of Sante, and we used this company called Eastman Costume Companies. They supplied all the uniforms, and everything about this documentary is absolutely authentic. The uniforms, all the uniforms are authentic. The weapons, everything that was used is authentic. That was used during that time period. And this documentary, when it comes out, is going to be the most accurate documentary ever produced about the Sante raid, due to the fact of the authenticity of the equipment and the tactics. So when we were out there filming, we had the actual people who were part of the mission out there as the technical advisors. I portrayed Tyrone Adderley, who received the Distinguished Service Cross, which is the second highest award that you can win for valor, next to the Medal of Honor. I portrayed Tyrone Adderley in the documentary. And so I had the opportunity to be out there, I had the opportunity to talk to Tyrone Adderley about his actions on the mission. And it's going to be a really, really good documentary when it comes out. And just back in November, they had I believe it was the 53rd anniversary of the Sante raid. And what we did there was held in Myrtle Beach, held at Fort Walton Beach, Florida, because they planned their mission out of Eglin Air Force Base. And so we hosted them and we showed the film, and they were really impressed with the film. So right now the film's in post-production, have a couple of other interviews to do, and this is going to be a thriller when this movie comes out.
Mr. Mullen, did you what's the difference between airsoft and Muslim? And was Muslim already a police officer game or um, a military game while you were training?
Well, I was asked to participate in airsoft back in, I want to say 2005, right? I didn't know what airsoft was. In airsoft, you have airsoft and mil sim. Airsoft is where the kids have the different type of weapons. They go out there, have fun in the backyard. But the mil sim is where they go for authenticity as far as equipment, weapons, and so forth. And it's a tactical game, and you do strategy. You go force on force. Now this is a game, but now law enforcement is using type weapons for training. Force on force training, because a lot of the weapons now that they make in airsoft, if you were to put them next to the real weapon, you couldn't tell them apart. Full metal weapons and an airsoft weapon can run anywhere from around $400 to $500 for an airsoft weapon. And the technology of this airsoft weapon has came along from the early stages where these things, they put a BB out to almost 100 meters. And so a lot of law enforcement use it because it's a cheaper form of using force on force instead of using blue tip and UTM and simunitions, which hurts when you get hit. And so a lot of law enforcement are using it for their tactical training. But
Yeah.
they have a huge game in Russia every year, a huge game in Russia where people from all over the world come to participate in this game in Russia. It's a huge mil-sim event where they have actual tanks and everything out there when they do it. It's probably one of the largest mil-sim games in the world. Have it every year in Russia.
Wow. Do you go on the range regularly?
Well, I don't go to the range to shoot as often as I want to, due to other commitments. But I love going to the range. I was out on the range back in January, almost around a month ago. We went out there. We went to the range. We have what we call our Tech Sim Range Day every year. It's a day before the SHOT Show in Las Vegas, but we hold it in Arizona. And at our Tech Sim Range Day, where we get together and we just shoot all day, all different types of caliber of weapons. And it's growing to the point where we're going to expand it even more and invite vendors out, to participate. And you're invited out too if you can make it out.
Cool. When I was in New York, you had a black tan. You went to a black tan convention. Can you tell me a bit about this?
Okay, the Black and Tan convention, it's not a convention, but it's held during the SHOT Show. And the Black and Tan is a group of former Rangers. And it's about, former Rangers who own businesses, and we get together and they talk about different business ventures. They have, one of my Ranger buddies have this liquor, I forgot the name of it, Three Rangers or something like that, where they just get together and talk about different type of entrepreneurs and they just network. And they also raise money for different organizations. So it's a get together, more like a reunion where you have the Rangers from the past, present, and future Rangers get together and just have a good time. We call it Black and Tan.
Do you own a J2? Because I went in New York airsoft playing, and I read that the Milcor that was introduced in South Africa, that it's sold now for civilian in the US. So you can own your own grenade shooter.
Well, you have like the airsoft weapons, they get with the say for instance like H&K, they get the license with H&K where they can put the H&K stamp on the weapons and they can make a replica of the weapon. So this license, they get the license to use like H&K, different brands of weapons and stuff. But what's crazy is they have I've seen some crazy stuff on these airsoft events. I've seen one young man had a mortar, right, that fired these little Nerf rockets, And it was pretty accurate. It was bracketing within, 3 little adjustments. He was hitting on target. So I was pretty impressed.
How was your time? Have you ever been to Somalia? Were you stationed ever in Somalia?
No, I've never been to Somalia, but I was in the 3rd Ranger Battalion when Somalia went down. And I was in 3rd Bat, and then I went up to the regiment. So I remember very clearly when Bravo Company, when they deployed to Somalia, when they deployed. And that right there was, that was something. We lost some Rangers that I knew and put through Ranger School. Some really good friends of mine were injured seriously. And matter of fact, they just had a couple of months ago, they had an upgrade ceremony because a lot of awards were upgraded to Silver Stars. And so I had a chance to just reconnect with a lot of my Ranger buddies down at Fort Benning who participated in that mission.
You were in the 75th Ranger Regimental Infantry Regiment. That's special operations, no?
Right, yeah, the 75th Ranger Regiment. Right, under the 75th Ranger Regiment, you have the Ranger Battalions. You have the 1st Ranger Battalion, 1st to 75th Ranger, 1st to the 75th Ranger Regiment, Ranger Battalion. That's at Hunter Army Airfield. Then you have 2nd of the 75th Ranger Battalion. They're at Fort Lewis, Washington, and 3rd of the 75th is at Fort Benning, along with the regimental headquarters, 75th Ranger Regimental Headquarters. It's also expanded because now they have an MI Battalion, which part of the regiment also.
So what is unconventional warfare? How was that training?
Well, unconventional warfare training can, it can cover a lot. You can unconventional be in jungle type training. It can be Arctic, training, unconventional. When you talk about unconventional warfare, it's not like you have your big wars like say for instance about the threat about Russia where you had the tanks and stuff like that. Old Eastern Pact type wars when you had the tanks. Unconventional war is more like what Special Forces did during the Vietnam War, what Special Forces were doing over in Afghanistan and Iraq. What Delta, the SEAL teams, and the MARSOC, what they do, that's unconventional warfare.
Did you fly then to the jungle? But how did you train this? Or
in the
to
jungle?
the Arctic?
Well, when I served, right, I retired out of the Army back in 2002. So, it's changed a lot. But at that time when I served, I've been down to, I conducted jungle training down at Fort Sherman in Panama. That's before they gave the canal over to the Panamanians. You had Fort Clayton down there. You also had Fort Sherman, where they did the jungle warfare school. It was called JLTC, Jungle Operation Training Center. And what they used to do is rotate units to go down there for up to 2 weeks to conduct jungle training. They go through the jungle school and you learn how to survive, fight in a jungle type environment. And I had the opportunity to go to JLTC 6 rotations. But unfortunately, when we signed over, when President Carter signed over the Panama Canal to the Panamanians, they gave that all over to the Panamanians. So we lost that jungle school capability. And unfortunately, so now they resurrected the jungle school out in Hawaii, the 25th Infantry Division. They conduct a jungle school over there. But if you ask me, it's not the same. It's not the same. The jungle is different in each type of tropical environment. Like you have the Panamanian jungle, you have the jungles down in South America, the Amazon basin. Then you have the jungles of South Vietnam, Southeast Asia. Different type of jungle, but the threat is all the same. And what's crazy about the jungle is that people see these shows like Tarzan. They see him walking out there with khaki shorts on and little khaki shirts. No. The jungle is one of the most inhospitable terrains I ever had the opportunity to work in. And everything in the jungle bites. Everything's a creepy crawler. And it's not like they show on TV.
Did you ever eat crocodile? I just read that the Ghana Defense Force eats crocodile.
Well, yeah, crocodile is a delicacy, believe it or not, in Florida, in Louisiana. I've eaten crocodile meat, eaten buffalo meat, armadillo, monkey meat, rattlesnake, ate all kind of stuff, ate it all.
Well, did you in South America? Then did you get taught by South American officers?
No, when I went to jungle school, the Army, we had our own cadre down there. They're stationed down there, and they're jungle warfare instructors. And so their main job is to teach us. But now they have the course. It's called a Lancero course down in the Lancero course. I believe it's in, I want to say, Colombia, and that course is rough. It's rough. And then they do jungle training in Malaysia. When I was in the regiment, I sent one of my NCOs to the Malaysia tracking school, the Malaysian survival school in Malaysia. He was there for almost a month, 2 months. And that's all he did was learn, how to survive in the jungle. And so when we sent a soldier out there, when we sent him, his job was to come back with those skills that he learned and was taught, and he teach us. So it's like a trainer. I got an opportunity. I went to the Northern Warfare Training Center, and I went through this instructor certification course where I learned how to, snow ski, snowshoe, how to survive in an Arctic environment. And so I take those skills back to my unit, and I give classes, prior to us deploying to Arctic environment, how to survive in Arctic.
Yeah, you were you were ranger. You did train. You did work. Officer. What's it called again? You did teach soldiers to become soldiers. No.
Ranger instructor?
Yes.
Yes, I was a ranger instructor down at Fort Benning for 7 years, and I was a ranger instructor in 2 eras. When it's called the Benning Ranger Department, we had at that time what we call committee groups, and then I was a plank holder. A plank holder is a person that is the first to begin with a new era, and so we transitioned from the Benning Ranger Department to what they have now, which is the Ranger Training Brigade, Ranger Training Battalions. So I was there during a transitional period. And Ranger School is a very demanding school. And at the time when I was an instructor, it was 53 days. It was 53 days in duration. And it was over various terrains. You had the Benning phase, you had the mountain phase. And then when I was an instructor, we had what we call the desert phase. And then they had like the jungle riverine type phase, which is in Florida. But they did away with the desert phase. So they just got the 3 phases, the Benning mountain and the jungle type warfare down at Eglin Air Force Base.
Were you really mean? Were you as mean as your instructor?
Yes, I was very mean.
Why?
I was very mean. Well, my job is a stress ranger, because ranger school it's also a leadership course too. And when you're sleep deprived, and you don't have a lot of food, you sleep deprived. If you can get a soldier to conduct and perform a mission under those type of strenuous environment, you're an effective leader. You're an effective leader. And so we do this to stress. You have to be able to operate under stress, because in a combat environment, you're under tremendous amount of stress, and some make it and some don't. But everything that we did as a ranger instructor was the stress ranger. And know if you really want to be a ranger. Everybody can say, yeah, I want to be a ranger, but do you have the tenacity? Do you have the will to see the course through? I tell a lot of people recruiting posters they see conducting a halo with all the cool equipment, skydiving from 23,000 feet with oxygen mask on, or doing a scuba insertion, and all this cool stuff, but everything comes with a price. You have to count the cost, because it looks cool and fun to do, but I tell you, got your miserable times. I mean, it can suck, as we say in the Rangers.
Now you can see on television shows that the instructors are very mean, and I reckon you get you get soldiers in school. They already know that's your job to make that to be mean. No, then you have
Yeah.
to be even more mean.
I remember when I went to Ranger School. I went through Ranger School back in 1978. And I always wanted to be a ranger. I remember day one of Ranger School, we're all motivated. We run into, we had to go into a classroom to get instructed. We come there screaming, ah, Ranger. And I remember the Ranger instructor said, shut the F up. He said, shut up. And so you hear a cool, everybody just died down. And he said, you better save that crap for later on in the course because you're gonna need it. And half of you ain't gonna be here. And it sent a cold chill on everybody's back. It's a wow. And so day one, I remember we had our class tax. And so we're in the barracks day one, and they have us doing these ridiculous tasks. We had a layout inspection. So everything had to be the same. We had it inside our barracks. You had upstairs and downstairs, old World War II barracks. And so the cadre had come into the building. He'd look at the first bunk and said, and then they go look at the second bunk. This is the same. I'll be back in an hour. And we said, what the hell? So everybody's putting everything together and, making sure, everything's proper. Then they come back in an hour or 2 hours, right? By then it's probably around 12 midnight. He go around the first bunk, third bunk. Okay. Then he say, look at the cat eyes and said, these are sewed on wrong, you tear them off. He said, I'll be back in 2 hours. And we said, what the hell is he looking for? So again, then he come back 2 hours later. It's probably around 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30 in the morning. He's standing at attention by our bunks. He come by, looks, he said, this stuff is screwed up. Y'all screwed up. And he said, go ahead and get some sleep. All right. So we go ahead and get our sleep. And then around 45 minutes later, they're coming through the barracks, raising hell, get the hell out, get outside in formation, run out of the barracks in formation. And so for the first week, we probably only got something like 8 hours sleep the first week. And so that's when the sleep deprivation started. And everything was rush, rush, rush. And they throwing all this information at you, writing all this stuff down. Man, how I'm gonna remember all this stuff. People are falling asleep. Rangers should get up, get in the back, hold a rock up. And we're constantly getting smoked. And people are quitting every day. I quit, I tap out, I quit. I don't want nothing to do with this, I quit. And so on the first week, we may start out with over 250 students. That's on a Monday. By that Friday, when they go to the next phase, which is Camp Darby, we're probably down to around 110 students. The rest of them were just washed out. And so then they go down there and then they get less sleep. And then they come back on an 8-hour break. And so you lose more students. So when you go through the whole course, when you may graduate, probably with only 60 of the original students out of that 200 and something. Because you pick up students who were injured, who got recycled to fill the class out. So it was a very demanding course. And I was blessed because I made it through without being recycled, which is rare.
So they kicked you first out.
No, you'll get it's the ways you get out. If say for instance you have what we call a peer, we do peer reports at that time. And so
what does this mean? It's like the Stasi.
Well, the peer report is okay. You get a whole squad of guys. Say you got 12 men, and so okay, we want you to tell us who wasn't pulling their weight, who was slacker when you were in charge, who didn't support you when you were in charge, right? So you do your peers. And so whoever got the worst amount of peers, he was sent to another platoon, right? And his peers is very important because you got guys, when I was a Ranger instructor, I always see, you learn different personalities. You learn all the different personalities. You get to the point where Ranger would tell you something and you say, Ranger, you're straight up lying. Don't tell me what you want to hear, tell me the truth. And so there's 6 cents. And for instance, you be very observant. You see a Ranger student and he's getting graded. So we know who's going to get graded. You say, Ranger Jones, give me Ranger Jones. Ranger Jones come up. All right, Ranger Jones, you are now the patrol leader. How much time do you need to give your warning order when you receive your mission? He says, okay, Sergeant, I'll be ready with my warning order in 30 minutes. Okay, you got 30 minutes, right? And so then all the positions change, leadership positions, right? Ranger so-and-so, you're not a Bravo team leader. You guys get together with the old squad, old team platoon leader, squad leader, and you exchange information, where you at on the map and so forth. And so then I'm waiting. I'm looking at my watch. Hey, all right, Ranger, you said 30 minutes. What's up? I need an extension, Sergeant. How long you leave? I need around 15 more. Got 15 more minutes. All right, waiting. Okay. Then he said, okay, 15 minutes up. Let's go. Let's do it. Warning order. So he puts his warning order out. Now, this guy, when he wasn't being graded, all of a sudden he's all motivated. He's bossing everybody around, right? And so that's what you call a spotlight ranger. He's only doing things when a spotlight's on him, right? He's getting graded. But when he's not in a graded position, you can't get her to do anything. The next guy, hey, can you move over here? Man, forget you. So he's not supportive. So those are the kind of guys you want to peer out, who's not pulling their weight.
Your first deployment was in Korea.
Yes.
How was Korea by then?
Oh, I did 3 tours in Korea. And so my first tour in Korea was from 1977 and 1978. And when I went to Korea, you got to remember the Vietnam War was over officially in 1973. The Vietnam War was over. And so a lot of the soldiers, like especially like the NCO sergeants and stuff, were from the Vietnam era. And so when I went to Korea, I got there of January 6th, 1977. And I got there when it was still, 2nd Infantry Division was still like in a war footing, because that August you had the Panmunjom tree cutting incident where 2 officers were killed. And that tree cutting incident was called the Panmunjom Operation Paul Bunyan, where we almost went to war, right, with the North Koreans.
About the tree.
Right, over the tree, right?
And
so
then the flags.
Yep, and the flags. So we came close to war there. And so we're still at a combat footing over in Korea. And at that time, this is way before the Olympics in '88. At that time, Korea was real rural. So a lot of the training that we did it in the countryside in the wintertime, because the rice paddies are frozen over and, vehicles can go and train out there without, destroying everything. When in the summertime, you have all the rice paddies, and so you can't maneuver like you want to. You just go to the ranges. But Korea it's cold. We did a lot of our training in the cold. And I remember it get times to get up around 32 degrees below zero with the wind chill. It gets cold. And at that time, we didn't have heaters in our vehicles. And so you had to learn how to survive,
But how did you feel? How did you feel about the tree?
Okay, the tree cutting incident, that's been volatile, because there's never been a truce, since the Korean War. There's been an armistice, right? And I'm not surprised that it happened, because that stuff, there've been so many intrusions by the North Korea into the South. Every year, they try and infiltrate. And during the summertime, when they do a lot of the infiltration, my second tour, I was up on a DMZ. You had a particular zone called the American Zone, where you had 2 guard posts, Collier and Olet, where we did the patrolling in that sector. And you have Propaganda Village, then you have Freedom Village right there in the buffer zone. Then you have Panmunjom.
What's Propaganda Village?
Propaganda Village is a village on the North Korean side. It's like a showcase village. And it looked like a modern housing complex, but nobody lives there. That's why they call it Propaganda Village. And they have this gigantic type Eiffel Tower, and they would host up a North Korean flag. This thing was huge every morning. And so then you see the people come out there working the rice fields and stuff. And so you think this is a village that's occupied. But then I would look through the ship-to-shore binos out there, watching them. You can see the fence. You can see the North Korean soldiers walking the fence line. You can hear the propaganda music being blasted back and forth across the DMZ. But then an evening comes. You start seeing the people slowly go way out of the rice fields, going back into the village. You see them walking, in the village like they live there. It looked like a modern housing complex. You see them walking, and you see all of a sudden all the lights come on at the same time. And then you see shadows, like in the windows, like somebody's walking, like the TV, you see like shadows walking, but there's nobody there. The village is completely empty.
How did I do this?
It's propaganda to show the South how modern North Korea is, but nobody. But then on the South Korean side, they have what they call Freedom Village, right? And it's the South Koreans who live in Freedom Village. They're exempt from serving in the military. They get special exemptions such as pay to live there, and they get all these special privileges. And so that is the South Korean, their equivalent to the propaganda village called Freedom Village. Then you have Panmunjom, where arms is assigned. Whenever there's an intrusion, they get there to meet and so forth like that. But when I was there, we occupied Garpo's Collier and Garpo's Olet, and the units, they would rotate up there for 3 months at a time. And they have what they call warrior base, where they stage out a warrior base, and you run patrols, daylight patrols and night combat patrols. But in the guard post, our job was to look into North Korea. And at that time, they were doing a lot of tunneling, right? Tunneling. And we may hear like a muffled explosion, like an earthquake. And so we shoot at azimuths where we think that noises came. Then we write it, record it down, and we'll let 8th Army headquarters know, hey, we have suspected activity of tunneling, and record it down. And in the winter, during the summertime, the North Koreans would infiltrate through the American sector. Because
like on the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Say again?
Like in Vietnam, the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Yeah, but you have this fence line, right, that goes across the whole peninsula of Korea, the fence, and it separates North and South Korea. But the North Koreans always infiltrate. I remember back in 1968, they had 33 North Korean commandos infiltrated, right, from the unit, Unit 124, Special Selected Commander Unit, to infiltrate it. And they came within 200 meters of the Blue House, which is the South Korean equivalent to the White House. They came within 200 meters of going to assassinate President Park Ji-hung Park Ji-han at that time. And it was a crazy shootout. One of the North Koreans escaped back to North Korea. One of them was captured. The other ones were killed. 31 of them were killed, or they committed suicide. But the one he kept, they kept him for a year. They interrogated him, got all this information out, and they eventually let him go into the South Korean, community, because they can't get back north. So what they did, the North Korean government killed his mother and his father, right? Because when they came to South Korea, and there's no doubt in my mind, when they were over on the mountains and saw the city lights of Seoul, there's no doubt in my mind, someone said, we've been lied to. We were told South Korea is like this, but it's almost like a modern metropolis. So this man was released, and he became a pastor. He became a pastor, a minister in South Korea. And I tried to do an interview with him because I was going to write a book on the Blue House raid. But I was able to get in contact with him, but he said he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to talk about it. But being up on the DMZ was a highlight of my tour in Korea.
Because you scared?
Oh yeah, well at nighttime you're kind of scared. People say they're not scared, they're lying. You get nervous, especially when the fog rolls in. You're in a night ambush position, the fog rolls in, you can't see anything. That's when you go into a heightened alert. You go to a heightened alert. And but it's at the time that's about as real as it got. And so eventually I think we gave it up back in 1988, 89. They gave all that sector over to the South Koreans. They took over everything, and we pulled the soldiers out. Now we have a small footprint of soldiers in South Korea.
Before you went to Korea, did you meet Korea veterans on the street and or in your family? And did they tell you something?
Well, it's funny how I got Korea. My father's in the Army, right? He was in the Army band. And back in 1963, he was stationed on Okinawa. And so that's how I came and fell in love with the Far East as a dependent, as a child of 5 years old, 6-year-old. Our babysitters was a Japanese family. And so these are the babysitters where my mom worked and my dad worked. And the Japanese family would keep us, and I'll never forget it to this day. And it was traditional Japanese family. And I just fell in love with the Far East. So I tried to get Japan, but at that time didn't have any type of infantry unit. So, well, you can get Korea. I said, I take it. But I fell in love. I did 3 tours of Korea. I absolutely fell in love with the country. I fell in love with that country. But it's changed so much that I want to remember Korea how it used to be, when it's still kind of rural, but now it's like an ultra modern metropolis. But what's crazy is that I was a high school wrestler, and I was really good at wrestling. And one of my heroes was Young Jung Mo, right? And Young Jung Mo, he was the first Korean to win an Olympic gold medal in wrestling, in Olympic gold medal, period. And I remember he was at the Montreal Olympics, and I saw him when I was a kid in high school. I said, man, this guy's amazing. And I said, I want to learn from him. So my first tour to Korea, I tried to find, hey, Young Jung Mo. And a lot of them said, no, we don't know where he's at. We don't know where he's at. At that time, you didn't have the internet. You didn't have social media. So it's really hard to find. So the way I would find, I would go to the library, I look at old microfiche, find old news articles, anything I can about this man, this Korean man, Young Jung Mo. And so then I went back on my second tour, right? Again, I tried to find Young Jung Mo to no avail. And then I was stationed at Fort McPherson, and it's during the 1996 Olympics, right? I happened to go down to Fort Benning. At that time, they had the World Championship here in Atlanta, Georgia. They had the Olympic Games in Atlanta, Georgia. And so the South Korean Greco-Roman wrestling team was training down at Fort Benning with the American soldiers, right? So I hopped in there and stopped by, and I saw the Koreans wrestling. And so I said to one of the Korean coaches, I said, you speak? Yeah, a little bit. And I said, I want to tell you something. I said, my hero, my idol was Young Jung Mo. He was my Michael Jordan, Young Jung Mo. And he said, Young Jung Mo, he's here. I said, no way. He said, yeah, he's here. So I said, tell him to come here. So Young Jung Mo came over, right? And I said, can you translate for me? He said, yes. I want you to tell Young Jung Mo that when I was a kid, a little skinny kid in high school, I said, I remember he wrestled Gene Davis at the Montreal Olympics, and he beat Gene Davis, and he had his signature fireman's carry. And I said, I went to Korea 2 times. I wanted to study under you, Young Jung Mo. I said, you were my idol. You were my hero. You were like my Michael Jordan. And it's an honor, to meet you. He started crying. He was shocked. And I said, I know it's kind of crazy that how you, a Korean over there, all the way in Korea, has such an influence on a young, skinny black kid from Zion, Illinois. But I just wanted to tell you that you're my hero. He didn't know what to say. He was like absolutely shocked. And so he gave me this coin. It's a 10,000 won coin. And on that 10,000 won coin is the image of him wrestling Gene Davis. Because Young Jung Mo is considered a national treasure. He's on a national registry. And he said, you tell Sergeant Mullen, if he ever comes to Korea, he has a place to stay.
Did he tell you some bad stories about Korea?
No, when I told him about Korea, I told him about how I did 2 tours over there, how I fell in love with the country, how I tried to find him. He was shocked and amazed because what I did when I went to Korea, I didn't hang around the villages, where, people go to get drunk, party. I used to go out there and learn the culture. I want to learn what Korea was about. And that's what I did. I went there and learned the foods, and I learned the history. And what's crazy is I go in there, they be like tripping out. How do you know so much about our country? I said, because I fell in love with the country. And you always hear this stuff about racism, especially here in America, about how, well, it's racist, the white man is going against the Koreans, the Korean against the blacks. And it's all about it's culture, learn each other's culture. And when I tell people that my hero wasn't Michael Jordan, my hero was a Korean man, a Korean wrestler. He was my hero. And people are shocked and amazed. I said, you never know who your hero is. The hero can come in different colors. And I said, as far as that, you can't help who you fall in love with. You just can't. And, all this, Black Lives Matters and all this other crazy stuff. When I was growing up, when I was raised, it was no big deal with kids. I remember my friend with Hartman Hagen, he was German. He talked about in his 60s, and I never had a problem with him. My good friend, Billy, he was Filipino. And so when we lived there, it was like just kids having a good time. Prejudice is taught. Nobody is born prejudiced. It's taught. It's infectious. And the only way it can be beat, that people put their foot down and say, nah, it ain't happening. It ain't happening. But that friend was my hero, was young Jung Mo. And I hope to meet him again one day. And I want my story to be a testament, like heroes come in different colors and different nationalities. It doesn't matter. I remember when I went to Germany, right? I went to Germany and we did it. I'm an astute historian. And I always wanted to get my German jump wings, right? And I remember I went to the German liaisons at Fort Benning. And I said, hey, I want to get my German, So we did
Where
a jump
have you been? Where?
We went to Stuttgart, then we went to a place called Weingarten, where they had the International Lehrstuhl course, right? With the International Lehrstuhl course. And the reason I wanted to get my jump wings, right, is because I did a lot of study about, the German army doing World War II and stuff, right? But on the history stuff, none of the political stuff, just on the fighting formations, right? And one was the Fallschirmjägers, right? The German Fallschirmjägers, they pioneered airborne, right? The General Student. They jumped into Holland, then they jumped into Crete, was the German army's last big use of the airborne forces. Then they're used on the Eastern Front and also in France and stuff, right? But to the tenacity of the German Fallschirmjäger soldier was absolutely phenomenal, right? Soldiers. And so we were out there at Weingarten, right? I saw these, these old German Fallschirmjägers, right? And, giving a stinky eye, because you talk about World War II, it's still a really touchy subject. And so my friend, right, I said, hey, he spoke fluent German because he's German. He came over to join the American Army. He said, hey, tell these guys, it's not about politics, that I admire their fighting capacity. I admire their fighting spirit, nothing political, but their fighting spirit, right? And they were shocked. They sat down with telling me stories about their fighting on the Eastern Front, and they signed this poster to me, right? And so then I always wanted to get my French airborne wings, because as a kid, I read a book about the French army in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, fighting in Dien Bien Phu and stuff like that. And I remember reading a book about, I can't remember, it's 2 books I read on Dien Bien Phu. And I saw this picture of Jennifer Garrett, at that time, Colonel, full regalia. And I said, man, I want those wings. Fast forward almost 45, almost 50 years later, we went to France, right? We went through the French ETAP, which is a French airborne school. And I was able to get my French jump wings, right? Something I always wanted. And these wings are special because they're numbered. And so while we're there, I think this was doing the 30, I want to say around the 45th or 40th anniversary. It's around 1988 anniversary of the D-Day invasion. So the town of St. Mary Glees hosted us, right? And St. Mary Glees is where the 82nd Airborne jumped in. If you ever seen a movie Longest Day, they jumped into St. Mary Glees, right? A lot of them got shot, hung on the towers. That's why to this day, you go to St. Mary Glees, you see a dummy in a parachute hanging from the steeple, right? That actually happened. And so when we got there, I just was amazed. I said, man, this is exactly like the movie Longest Day, because they filmed it there. And I'm going through the alleyway, absorbing all this information. I said, man, this is where it happened at. And so I remember I saw this German soldier, right? And the French were treating him like kind of nasty, right? And so I went over there and I introduced myself. And so we started talking, right? And he said, yeah, I was 18 years old when I joined the German Fallschirmjägers and I jumped into Crete. I said, wow, you jumped into Crete? He said, yeah, I jumped into Crete. And I said, I see the French kind of, yeah, I understand. But I come here every year. I come here every year because it's part of history, right? He said, I was just a soldier. You know, this is part of history. So we became good friends, right? And he gave me a German beret. And so then that whole week we're there, we went to Normandy Beach. And it's one of the most haunting things I ever saw was the D-Day cemetery up there, you know, at Omaha Beach. And what touched me, friend, is how immaculate the headstones, everything, manicured. All these soldiers, thousands of miles from home, who are buried here, who died on that beach right to the front, is buried here. You know, you see the Jewish cross there, you see the different everything, right? But it's silent. But the respect, like for instance, Belgium, France, Germany, for these graveyards, for these fallen soldiers, where they keep them, because they remember the war, right? And one thing about history, you can't erase history because history repeats itself, okay? And so while we were there, it was this, we went to Pegasus Bridge. You ever seen the movie D-Day? That's when the British Airborne, they went there, they came in on the gliders. And I remember I kind of got away from the group and they had this like little cafe out to the side. I walk in there. And you go inside, they have all this British Pegasus, British Airborne memorabilia in there, right? A little pub. And I see this old man sitting there in the corner. And he had this British beret on, Airborne beret on. And I walked over and introduced myself. And I can't remember his name, but come to find out, he led that raid on Pegasus Bridge. And I said, wow. I said, sir, I'll be honored if you come out here and give us a terrain walk on there. So he came out and he gave us, he said, the first glider landed here, you know, the second glider landed here, and, you know, Corporal so-and-so had the Piat, came to the bridge, they climbed out, they cut the wires and stuff, we had out, boom, boom, boom. And so they get an AAR after action review from the man who was there with a once in a lifetime experience. The man passed away. And then we did jumps. We did memorial jumps. We jumped into St. Mary Glees drop zone, right? And all the French people out there, so we jumped. And so we gathered up by shooting. I saw these three men standing there. It's this tall French man. He had a French legionnaire with a French legionnaire's beret on. He had medals coming down his chest. Big burly man. And when I came up with my parachute, I threw it down. And I knew by his beret that he was a legionnaire. And so his grandson spoke decent English. And I said, was he at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu? He said, yeah. He jumped into Dien Bien Phu. He was also there after Dien Bien Phu failed, and it was held by the Viet Minh for 3 years. And I said, wow, you know. And so I said, sir, can I shake your hand? And I shook that man's hand. And so I had the opportunity to meet a veteran of the Crete, jumped into Crete, had the opportunity to meet German Fallschirmjägers who fought on the Eastern Front, had the opportunity to meet a French legionnaire who fought at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. And so to see in these guys' history, you can't imagine. And I remember another time I was up there, I was a Second Ranger Battalion in the barracks, and they came back on a Friday and said, "Hey, the Foreign Legion, the American Legion, they want to know can some Rangers come there? They have like a little reunion party, and they like some Rangers would they come out there, you know, and meet with." I said, "I'll do anything, heck yeah." So me and a couple other Rangers put our dress greens on, and so we go there, and so they partners us up with a person. So my partner was this old skinny white man in his World War I doughboy uniform. Right? He said, "Hey there, young man." Say, "Hey, sir, it's a pleasure to meet you." And I sat down and I talked to that man. He said, I said, "You fought in the Great War?" I said, "You still?" "Yeah, I still fit my uniform." He said, "Yeah, I went over there and I fought there at the Battle of Beulah Woods, and I fought in this campaign. And I remember fighting in the mud. I got mustard gas, and I'm sitting there talking to this man for 3 hours. All right, 3 hours about his experience during World War I. And I look back on it. I said, you know what? I had the opportunity to speak to a World War I veteran. There are no more World War I veterans. They're all gone. They're all gone. Had opportunity to speak to Merrill's Marauders. Had opportunity to speak to a Japanese soldier during World War II. This is history that can't be forgotten. It can't be forgotten. But one thing though, I finally remember, we went to the German Airborne School. I said, "What about the history?" You know, "Well, we just don't talk about that." I said, "Well, what about the history of the German Fallschirmjägers?" He said, "Well, we really don't talk about it, but I'm going to show you something." So he showed us the history of the German Fallschirmjägers, rare maps, artifacts. I said, wow. I said, wow. Same here in Georgia where I live at, okay? One thing about where I live at, Fran, is here in Georgia, is General Sherman came and fought for the Battle of Atlanta. He came here to Atlanta, held it under siege, and he burned everything in his path all the way to Savannah, everything. Burned it down, burned it. And they said the night that Georgia howled. And one thing about where I live at, the Battle of Jonesboro took place, a big pivotal battle during the Civil War took place. And you go there now, you would never thought it was a battlefield there, right? But I got an old map and I go there and he had these historic signs. And I said, "See this line right here? Over 3,000 Union soldiers and Confederate soldiers died. But you see nothing but houses right here." And so then they have a Confederate graveyard, right? Where all these Confederate soldiers were buried. And I walk through that graveyard, you see the famous Orphan Brigade. You see Confederate soldiers came all the way from Texas who died there. They interned all the all the bodies there and got the Confederate flag up. And so that's history, right? Then you go down to Milledgeville, the same thing where the General Sherman, signed Georgia back into the Union. All this history, right? And they're complaining about this and that and this and that. And I said, you know what? Here's the thing. The South ain't gonna raise no more. The war's been over. He said, but this is part of our history. This is part of history. And you can't rewrite history. You can't change what happened in the past. You only can make sure it doesn't happen again. Period.
Did you learn in Ranger School or in school about the Jäger?
The Fallschirmjäger?
Yeah. In airborne school.
I learned this when I was in 5th grade because I love to read military history. I love military history. I learned about the Africa campaign, Rommel, matter of fact, General von Paulus, Stalingrad. I mean, I read all that, right? Pearl Harbor, because I'm a astute student in history. I love history. And so when people try and say, dude, you know what? Don't give me that fake news. That's not how it happened. They're trying to rewrite history. That's why I tell people, I said, you know what? I have a library of over 300 books. When I go to like these rummage sales, I like to get the books because you get this stuff online, they can change it, they can doctor it, right? They can move it. But the books is history. It's history.
Do you think the soldiers, the Afghanistan vets, were enough educated in school? I mean, I can't say this because but about the past of about Afghanistan and the past with Russia. And
here's the thing about Afghanistan is people understand. You look at Afghanistan now, back around 72, 69, 70s, you go to Afghanistan, it's like being back in New York. It's like being in Stuttgart. It's like being in Paris. Ultra modern. The women wore makeup, they wore modern clothes, nobody wore a burqa. None of that. I mean, Afghanistan was a modern metropolis, but it's hard to find pictures. You've seen it, even Tehran, Iran back in the day used to be the party capital of the world.
Was the hippie place.
Huh?
Hippie place.
Yeah, it was hippie, yeah, Tehran. People don't believe it. I said Tehran wasn't always like it is now. And especially like Cuba. Cuba was like, everybody should go to Cuba to party. But I show you what communism does, man. Communism is like a cancer. It destroys everything it touches, you know? But see, when you know history, you can't be bamboozled. You can't be bamboozled. And especially like American history, they don't teach a lot of American history no more, you know? They just don't. The people without a vision, they perish. And if you don't know your history, where you came from, you don't know nothing. I mean, you're lost. You're lost. And like in our school system here in America, they got this critical race theory, you know, all this crap. I said, man, when I grew up, right, my birth certificate said Negro. That's what it said, Negro, right? You look at the speeches of Malcolm X, the Negro. Listen to the speeches of Martin Luther King, the Negro. But now you can't use the word Negro because the Negro is offensive. Dude, that's what my birth certificate says. That's my birth certificate. So they said, no, you're African American. Bruh, no, I'm not. I'm American. I wasn't born in Africa. I was born here in America, right? And so when I tell these kids, you're African American, I said, bruh, I'm not African American. I've never been to Africa. I wasn't born in Africa. My ancestors came from Africa, but my great grandfather was born a slave in South Carolina. I said, all I know is America, you know?
In Fort Benning, you did train with Green Berets, no?
No, we don't. We don't train with Green Berets.
There.
No, at Fort Benning, there teaches airborne school, and you also have Ranger School. Also have the Armor Center there too. The Bradleys, the tanks, all that's teach there. The Special Forces is taught at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Because I heard that the Liberian President Doe was trained in Fort Benning.
Yeah, you know, Doe was trained at Fort Benning. Anastasia Somoza was trained at Fort Benning. Matter of fact, Anastasia he was a West Point graduate too. He was the former president of Nicaragua. Yeah, before Ortega took over. Yeah, he was on West Point. He had the School of Americas there at Fort Benning. It's called the School of Southern Hemisphere. Yeah, so yeah, a lot of people trained at Fort Benning. Yeah, a lot. Matter of fact, I remember when I was a Ranger instructor, the former Nigeria's president, his bodyguard came through, right? And the former Nigerian president, he was a Ranger School graduate. So yeah. And while the Ranger instructor, you have a lot of foreign students come through Ranger School from the Arab countries, Thailand, the Korean Army. We have them come from all over.
So tell me everything on how what happened when you arrived in Beirut.
I've never been to Beirut. I was in Grenada.
In Grenada, yeah.
Yeah, well, I remember finally that what happened in Grenada, I was getting ready to go wash my car, right? It was on a Saturday. And so we got alerted, said, hey, we're having a formation. We had a formation. And so fast forward, next thing I know, within 6 hours, the whole Ranger Battalion, 2nd Battalion, we get on these C-141 aircraft. We fly all the way to Hunter Army Airfield, right? In our mind, we're thinking, oh, this is just a training exercise. Where you go do you conduct a simulated training exercise, then you fly back, you go through all the NR sequences, you do it like it's the real thing. You go there, you jump in, it's nothing but a training exercise, you index, you come back home, boom. But when we landed at Hunter and we stepped up the aircraft, I said, bruh, this is not no training exercise. It's too much activities. You got AC-130 Spectre gunships. You got all this pallets of ammunition. You got all this activity. Bruh, I think we're going to war, right?
Why didn't they tell you?
Well, I had a kind of a hint because during that time, the Cubans were heavily involved in Africa, right? Especially Angola. You had a huge Cuban presence in Angola, right? They caused a lot of problems there. And so what they did is that Grenada, the Cuban government helped build a 10,000-foot runway. And they said it was tourism. But we knew better. You don't build a 10,000-foot runway for tourism. So what they did, they built it because that way they can fly from Cuba, Grenada, shorter flight to Angola, right? And so at that time, you had the Beirut bombing that happened the same week. So you had a Marine flotilla going towards Beirut because of the Beirut bombing where all those Marines were killed. And so when we were alerted, we thought we were going to Beirut, right? We thought. But then during our planning, they started handing out these maps. They said, we're going to the island of Grenada. And I said, Grenada? Dang, I just heard about Grenada. I happened to see John Stossel talking about Grenada on his program, on 2020 program around a month before, about the Cubans building a 10,000-foot runway. So I heard of Grenada from that. And so they're passing out tourist maps. And we said, well, where are the 1 over 25 or 1 over 50,000 topographic military maps that we use? He said, we have none. We're going to use tourist maps to plan. So we planned that evening. And so that morning, we woke up, we loaded the aircraft, full combat equipment, all of the ammunition. Rucksacks were incredibly heavy. And we loaded up on the C-130s and we flew nonstop from Hunter Army Airfield. We left the coast of Florida, and all of a sudden our signals at the front aircraft were getting picked up by Cuban trawlers. So they knew we were coming. Meanwhile, that Marine flotilla, they changed course, we're heading towards Grenada. And so then we started getting reports. A SEAL team, was drowned, but SEALs on the ground, they made it on a Grenada. And all of a sudden we started getting a report, hey, they're putting obstacles on the runway. When they said obstacles, they put like 55-gallon cans, abandoned vehicles, barbed wires, rocks, pallets of wood on the runway to enter, to keep it from landing, keep the aircraft from landing. And so aircraft, we had parachutes on there because our original mission was an air-land mission, right? We weren't going to jump in. We thought we were going to land, get off the aircraft. Our mission was a road march over the Cavallini barracks. Had one of our Spanish-speaking Rangers tell, hey, guys, stay in the barracks. The international peacekeeping forces coming in, the Red Cross is coming in, we're going to repatriate you back to Cuba. No, there's nothing like that. What happened, the prime minister of Grenada was assassinated and he took over. He had 2 medical campuses down there, True Blue campus and Grand Arnice campus, right? And this is where medical students come, medical schools can't make it into the medicals. schools here. They go down to Grenada to get their medical, certification, doctors and all that stuff, with doctors. So these two campuses, and yeah, these Grenadians, they took it over the island. They're scared. So we get the call, hey, they're putting obstacles on a runway. It's going to be a jump mission. Then they said, started shooting up. So we started passing our parachutes, right? Do what we call it in-flight rigging. That's where we put our parachutes on in the aircraft and get inspected. So we're getting shoot up. We said, what are reserve parachutes? We didn't have reserve parachutes. Said, we don't have reserves. What? We don't have reserves? Yeah, we don't have reserves. Normally you don't jump out of aircraft without a reserve parachute, but we didn't have reserves on the aircraft. So we were rigging up, and then all of a sudden I said, oh, de-rig, we're gonna air land. Okay, so we de-rig. Now all this chaos is going on. Got all this equipment in there. Bless you. And so then around 30 minutes out, we get a report, hey, first pass got jumpers on the ground. We're going in, we're jumping in. We got jumpers on the ground. And the first pass is taking heavy anti-aircraft fire. So we start passing the parachutes back out, strapping back up, putting the equipment on. And it said, we're only gonna make one pass. If you don't get out on this pass, you gotta land in Barbados, and get brought in once the airfield is secure. And I had on my mind, I'm getting out of this damn aircraft. It was hot, AC wasn't working, the doors were open. So we go in at 500 feet, right? Combat jump. This is the lowest jump since the Korean War, since World War II, 500-foot combat jump. And so we're flying, and I tell you, 500 feet look like you're just jumping off the hood of your car. And so we hear the pilots are nervous, they're scared, so the airspeed is going really fast. Now, normally you jump at 12,000-foot AGL when you jump out of an airplane, but we're jumping at 500 feet. And so since we don't have reserves, you're jumping at 500 feet, if your parachute don't open, even if you have reserve, it wouldn't matter. You're still gonna, burn in. So we jumped out, and I remember I fell out of the aircraft. He didn't jump because the load was so heavy. And I could see the green tracers going over the aircraft, right? Because they're up on a hill. And I landed, I said, yep, this is real McCoy. And I took our chutes off. And that first day was crazy. It was crazy.
What do you mean? Did you land and then run and build a?
It was supposed to be a night jump, but we got so far behind a park curve that wound up being an early daylight, twilight jump, right? That was the day when we jumped in. The sun was up and everything. I remember it was hot. It was hot and humid, and I landed on a runway. The winds we jumped in was a 20-knot wind, and if the winds are gusting over 12 knots, you don't even jump. But we jumped in a 20-knot wind. I mean, you're flying across that drop zone, and I landed on a runway. I tell you, I hit that runway so hard. I mean, I saw stars. I saw the Milky Way go by. I saw the sun go flying by. I saw the comet go by. I mean, I hit the ground hard.
And then you have to run somewhere. How do you know where you run?
No, we pull our parachutes off the runway because we cleared the field. We took all the obstacles off because the aircraft have to land, right? And so we cleared the airfield, 1st Ranger Battalion. They're having heavy fire on the east end of the runway. On our end of the runway, it's pretty secure. Then we start seeing the Cuban prisoners. We started getting Cuban prisoners running from the hill, scared because they're getting lit up by AC-130 gunship. So within an hour, maybe 2 hours on the ground, we assembled. We had over pretty close to 100 and something Cubans and Grenadian prisoners. They were scared. And so we held these guys. Then the International Peacekeeping Force landed. And so we, handed those guys over to them. And so day one of the operation was over. Then the Delta, they did a raid into Richmond prison. They got lit up pretty bad. And then the 82nd Airborne started air landing because we secured the airfield. So that was day one.
And then you went to the camp.
Yeah, our next mission was.
No, where did you sleep that night?
We slept on we slept off the side of the runway. We slept right out. It was beautiful. It was nice, tropical. But our next mission, we got a call that we're going to do an air assault raid to rescue to students and Grand Arnice campus, right? Yeah, True Blue campus. First Ranger Battalion rescued those students on day one, and on day two we had Grand Arnice campus. So we did we used this Marines CH-43 aircraft, and my company, Bravo Company, we loaded up on there and we took off flying over the water, and we landed on the surf, and we rescued those students, and then we flew back. Then we landed, and then we let the students, they got on the aircraft and took off flying. And then on the last day, that was on I think it was Friday, we were getting ready to go back to the States. So we had all our ammunition loaded out. We getting ready to go back. And then I remember First Sergeant Barton comes running up and said, "Hey man, we got another mission. We're going to the Cavalier Barracks, start loading magazines again." Nobody said a word, so we started loading up our ammunition. And it said, Battalion Commander briefed us, said, "We're going into Cavalier Barracks. We have some holdouts there. We have some Cubans and grenadiers holding out. Going to get them guys out." So we asked the question, are they going to prep the objective? When they say prep the objective, they're going to bomb it first before we air assault team. So they're going to prep the objective. So it should be pretty smooth sailing in. And so I remember they had 82nd Airborne Artillery on the east end of the runway. They started firing their 105. And then the fast movers out the USS America started bombing the hell out of it. See this plum of smoke just coming up way up in the distance.
19 people died, no?
Yeah, total, from 1st and 2nd Ranger Battalion. But we lost some men when we did the combat air assault in the helicopters in the Cavalier Barracks. Yeah, I think we lost 3 or 4 guys. Yeah, on that mission. But yeah, we did the combat air assault in the Cavalier Barracks, and that was ugly. That was not good.
Were you aware about this there?
Yeah, we didn't expect no resistance. But what happened, 8 helicopters landed, and I was supposed to be on the first lift, my company, but they bumped us to the second lift. That means we're gonna go on the helicopter's gonna go, drop those guys off, come back and pick us up and take us. And so 8 helicopters took off, only 5 came back. I think it's around a 30-minute turnaround, 15 minutes out, 15 minutes back. And I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where are the other helicopters? Were they diverted or what? And so when the 5 helicopters landed, we had to reconfigure our load. So I remember running to the Black Hawk, and I saw the crew chief, and I said, "Where's the other aircraft?" And he said, "Get on, get on, get on." And I remember that look on his face. I'll never forget it. I said, something's not good. It's not good. And I remember we took off, the 5 aircraft took off, we went out over the Caribbean, and we started heading toward Cavalier Barracks to sit on like a bluff, a cliff. And I remember we're all motivated, ready to go in there. It's like apocalypse now. Aircraft is flying. And I remember it popped up over that cliff. We came to land. We landed outside the compound, and I saw the 3 helicopters crashed. I said, "My goodness." And so we hit the ground, we dropped our rucks, and we started maneuvering. There's a lot of chaos going on, a lot of shooting, aircraft flying everywhere. And we pushed out, we formed a perimeter, and we held that ground all night. All right. So the next day, we went there onto the objective, Cavalier Barracks, and it was bombed to hell. And they took those helicopters, took the avionics out and just dumped them in the ocean because they were beyond repair. And we took our dead, wrapped them up in ponchos, we took them back. But what's crazy about Cavalier Barracks is we went down into the barracks complex. We started being, we go into where the barracks was bombed, you see letters, you read these letters, because grenadiers speak English, and you see pictures of these soldiers with their girlfriends at the beach. They were kids like us, seeing pictures with their buddies, their girlfriends, and having a good time. And so it puts a face on your enemies. I mean, these guys, these kids like us. And then we saw letters from these little radical punk colleges, supporting the revolution. And it was an experience. And when you come close to death like that, it put a whole different, thought on life. It really changes you.
But you think that Grenada is the journalists and historians did a good job on Grenada on that mission?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of good books out, but when we went in, they didn't allow press in until like day 2. They really controlled the press. But from the things that I did get out, most of it was pretty accurate, that the press reported. It was pretty accurate.
And in general, do you think that the journalists cover it enough, like how it is for the soldier?
No. Mm-mm. Not here in America. No.
I mean, what is missing? I mean, it's at some point up to you.
Well, the journalists here, I mean, they're not journalists. They're opinion writers. Journalism in America is dead. They do hit pieces. They don't do the story. Everything comes. I don't trust the press here in America. I just don't. I don't trust them one bit, because they take what you say and they completely twist it around. And I just don't have no. Back in the day, I did, but now it's more like opinion. It's not journalism. But you're a true journalist, because I've seen your stuff. You get out there, and I admire the work that you do. That's why I did this interview. I mean, you're like I call you like the Indiana Jones of journalists. You have no fear. You go out there where the story's at. And I said, man, you got a lot of guts. And so I respect a journalist like you. But I tell a journalist straight up front, I don't trust you. I don't, I control what I say. I watch what I say around me.
Do you get a lot of political, is there political conflict? Do you get a lot of, do you think veterans get a lot of hate from civilians in the States?
Well, you got them far left kooks, it's changed a lot. And it's not like it was in Vietnam. A lot of the Vietnam veterans came back, would get spat upon, called baby killers and stuff. And you got those that respect the military, but it all depends. Like you go like on the West Coast, like Seattle, you go to cities like San Francisco, LA, the respect's not really there. It's just not in these blue liberal cities.
And so I forgot to. Oh, I got to interview Korea War veteran, and
Yeah.
He's now really involved in the Free Korea movement and Veterans for Peace movement. And
Right.
he told me that they have a little promotion problem with other veterans, because in Veterans for Peace, the average age is about 80.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the same. He also told me that yeah. Do you know Veterans for Peace?
I heard of Veterans for Peace. I don't really get involved with organizations like that, Veterans for Peace.
Why?
I just didn't. Why? Well, here's the thing. I'm a soldier. I want peace too, but I know all that's political, and nothing's going to be done until the change in the politics has changed. They can do all the protests they want, but until you change what's up there in the politics, the political leaders, nothing's going to change. Nothing. And so you come to find out that from my years on this terra firma, that we're being played against each other. We are. You got this low-hanging fruit, right? The low-hanging fruit, the people that we see who are doing all this crazy stuff. But I want to know who's behind, who's manipulating this low-hanging fruit. Who are the true power? Who are the true hands doing all this, playing people against people? That's the one. Once you get rid of that riffraff, that's the unseen behind the curtain, then change will happen. If not, this low-hanging fruit, somebody replace these guys.
Were you stationed somewhere else? Were you did you get sent on sieges?
No, the places I've been to Panama, I've been to Korea, I've been to Japan, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Germany, France, England, Hawaii, Alaska, probably around 10 states here in America.
Did you do in Mexico anti-drugs?
No, I was down in Mexico partying. This is before it was crazy.
When you got did they ever teach you? I asked this everybody, but did you get told about PTSD while training?
Well, PTSD, they really don't talk about it in active duty. Most of it's talked about when you're out, PTSD. And PTSD is serious. That's a serious thing. It is. That's why I like working with the Silent Warrior Foundation. We help the veterans who suffer from PTSD. They get, you can't just put these guys on drugs all the time. The suicide rate is off the charts, and they just need somebody to listen to talk to. And just putting these guys dope up on drugs is not the key. They need to talk about it more in the military, the PTSD, but they normally don't address it until the soldiers are out.
So they need more people to talk to them, more other vets or something, or.
Yeah, you have a lot of organizations out there, a lot of organizations that have ran and funded by veterans that reach out and help. A lot of good organizations out there. Silent Warrior Foundation, you have the Wounded Warrior Project, you have so many organizations out there that help veterans. Yeah, but the thing is, the veterans got to reach out for the help, and what's sad to me is there's a lot of homeless veterans out there, a lot of homeless veterans. And we got to take care of these guys. These young men and women give half their life for their country, to go over there and fight these wars, and to come back, and we just like, thank you for your service. It's more than that. You got to take care of these soldiers.
Did you go to therapy?
No, I'm good. I've never been to therapy. To me, people handle stress, people handle PTSD differently. And no, I never went to therapy.
And you're hanging out with Boone Cutler, no?
That's my buddy Boone. That's my brother. That's my brother Boone. Good man. Good man. I love Boone because Boone, he talks about things that you normally hear in the news. If Boone Cutler was a female, a woman, he would be you. If he was a man, you would be Boone Cutler.
Yeah, he's researching really good. But he's more intelligent than me because he's
don't say that.
also doing a lot of rock and roll, and rock and roll, Super Bowl, Beyonce, will always be more popular than anything.
No. You're a good journalist. I like your stuff. I like your stuff. You know, if you were you would be good Ranger material because you have no fear.
I won't jump ever out of a plane.
I said the same thing.
No, I like to read. Yeah. So, how's Hollywood?
Say again.
Hollywood.
Hollywood is it's a lot of fun. I do acting, right? But I really don't take it acting. It's more like a hobby to me. You know, it's more like a hobby. But I enjoy acting. It's a lot of fun.
And how's Hollywood taking veterans?
Believe it or not, a lot of veterans work in Hollywood. A lot of behind the camera stuff. You'd be surprised at the number of veterans. And you got like David Ayer. You know, he's a veteran. David Ayer, he did the movie Suicide Squad. He did End of the Watch with Denzel Washington. End of the Watch, he also did Training Days with Denzel Washington. That's his movie. The tank movie Fury, that's his movie. David Ayer, he was a radar sonar tech in the Navy during the Gulf War.
Wow, I didn't know.
Yeah, he was a sonar tech. Yeah, he was in the Gulf War. He was on a nuclear sub. David Ayer, you know, movie producer, great guy, great down to earth guy.
And on Hollywood parties, do you have to talk all the time about war?
No, I've never been to a Hollywood party, but when I'm on set, believe it or not, we just talk about normal things. You know, they ask me about Rangers and stuff like that. And, you know, I tell them, but I never had a problem on set. I always get a lot of respect. You know, when they find out who I am, you know, I get the respect. You know, I don't talk politics or anything like that. They say, thank you, you know, yeah, thank you. You know, so I've never really been disrespected in Hollywood. As a matter of fact, a lot of those guys are my friends.
Do you think gun rights in the US became a political thing in the 80s?
Yeah, see, they want to take our guns away. They want to take our guns, and that ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. And see, the reason they want to take our guns away, because if you don't have no guns, you can't. Look what's going on in Australia. They took all the guns away in Australia, New Zealand. What happened? The people are getting oppressed by the government. We have the guns to protect us from the government, you know. And what they try and do is they talk about, well, the street, you know, the ones who, you can't stop the bad guys from getting the gun. You take the guns from the responsible people like that, the criminals are always going to get the guns. They'll find a way to get guns, you know. But we have every right. Somebody come to my house, guess what? It's not going to end very good in their favor. You know, we have a right to protect ourselves. We have every right. You can't depend on the police. You just can't. You can't depend on them.
They have guns. They have guns.
Yeah, they have guns, but like, what's somebody kicking down your door? Like in America, you have kids who will come there and do what they call home invasion. They kick your door in and kill you and everybody, steal your stuff. 911, they're kicking in my door. Okay, we'll be there in 30 minutes. 30 minutes, and we, you know, nah. You have every right to protect yourself. So if I'm a responsible gun owner, why am I getting punished? Doesn't make any sense.
In the US, can veterans go to the police service after their service in Afghanistan?
Yeah, you had a lot of soldiers join law enforcement. Matter of fact, one of my sergeants, he went up and he's a captain of the SWAT team. You know, one of my best NCOs. Yeah, they do really well in the in law enforcement.
And what's your next mission?
What I want to do next? I have a lot of things coming up. We're getting ready to have Acid Gambit in June, Silent Warrior Foundation. This is about the rescue of Kurt Muse during the Panama invasion, the Delta when it arrested Kurt Muse from that prison. So we're bringing Kurt Muse in, some of the Delta guys from the mission, and we're going to have a Whiskeys and War Story in June to raise funds for the veterans for that. Looking forward to that. Then I have some speaking engagements I'm looking forward to. Some big events. Had the Blade Show coming up, and 2022 is looking really good. I'm excited.
What are you
Get back
doing
to
on
drinking.
speaking events? Are you doing yeah, what
Motivation.
you
I do motivational speaking, and also speak at veterans events. But I like empowering people. I love motivating people. I love bringing the person's potential out. You know, you'd be surprised at the gifts that a person have that's dormant in them. You know, so I like inspiring and motivating people. That's my main mission in life.
And do you what news do you read? Do you read international news?
I look at BBC News sometime. With news, eat the bones. I eat the fish and spit out the bones, right? And I don't have no trust in American news. It's all fake and phony, right? All they do is lie. And you get better news from like, journalists from overseas. You just got to get, it's almost like the movie X-Files. The truth is out there. You got to take this piece, this piece, this piece in order to form the truth. And after a while, you pretty much say, yeah, they're trying to, blow sunshine at my butt. You get to, who's, talking crap, like, especially American news. Jeez, my goodness.
Yeah. Did you watch the German news? I sent you German news.
I like German news, but you have any recommendations? What news to watch in German?
Well, do you know? Can you speak German?
Sprechen Sie Deutsch, kommen hier bitte. Kommen Sie hier bitte. Raus! That's it.
Okay.
Ich spreche Berliner. Did I say that right?
I think Deutsche Welle is quite good. They're everywhere. They're in Ghana and everywhere all over the world.
You speak German. You're German, right?
Yeah.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Yeah, Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
Bierfest.
Okay. You like beer? Television, Kassel and Television. Okay.
Yeah. I'm from Bierfest town. I'm from the rich. Yeah. So, Ranger. Mr. Mullen, how are you allowed on TikTok?
I don't mess with TikTok.
Why?
Because because it's owned by the Chinese government, and TikTok's owned by the Chinese government, right? And what they do, they just collect data. That's all they do. And see, what gets me about TikTok, you get soldiers in uniform doing stupid stuff on there, and it's an embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. It makes it. You don't never see the Chinese army on TikTok. You just don't. And it making a mockery, and it's not for me.
And Instagram.
Instagram, yeah, I like Instagram. I like Instagram.
Yeah. Now.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You froze for a second.
Now a bit mind of blank. Yeah. What else? Do you think there will be in the spring a spring uprising in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan's a mess. no telling. I mean, it's the way we left Afghanistan. It's oh my goodness. Don't even get me talking about that. It's a big mess.
But what's going to be next? I mean, it was a mess 10 years ago.
Well, see, you gotta remember, we should have never left. We should have left the presence there in Afghanistan. It was all political. The whole thing was political. You gotta, friend, you gotta understand the big picture, why Afghanistan went the way it did. It's an agenda about everything that you see. It's an agenda. Yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess.
And with the Crimea.
You talking about with Crimea? What I think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
You want to know why? My opinion. Why I don't think Putin's he's not going to invade? He's not going to invade. Putin's laughing at Biden. Everything they're trying to push Putin to do something. They're trying to goad him. They want to go to war. I mean, you understand these people, right? They see that the COVID is failing, right? It's, okay, we got to do something else. Let's go to war. War is money. War is money. They want us to go to war, but Putin's not stupid. He's not going to jump. But Biden, they want us to go to war. Because you know why? All that rotten stuff him and his son were doing over there in Ukraine, they want to burn the evidence. Let's go to war, go to war. Dude, we know what you did over there. It's all political.
Did you ever watch the TV show, The President of Ukraine? And
do I watch the president?
The president of Ukraine, he's he did star in a television show.
No, I haven't seen the show. I haven't seen it.
You should watch it. It's really strange because it's like Back the Dog. Because in the movie he plays the president.
Well, I never seen that. Send me a link. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it should be actually on Netflix. Do you know the atomic veterans?
Atomic veterans?
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of those guys are that's from the 50s and 60s. The atomic veterans. Yeah, they got done wrong. Yeah, yeah. Even the atomic veterans and the Agent Orange veterans. Right now, you got the burn pit veterans. Yeah, they need to be, they need to be reparations for that.
Okay. Is there anything you haven't, a scandal or something?
A scandal? My scandalous life is over. No scandals, no. The only scandal is, that damn Hunter Biden. What a rat. The president's son, all of them are crooks. Every one of them need to go to damn jail. Every one of them. Every flipping one of them.
Why? What did Biden do?
Hunter Biden? You don't know about his laptop? Hunter Biden's laptop from hell? And plus, all that stuff he was doing over there in Ukraine with the Ukrainian president, all those dirty deals with money, him, Nancy Pelosi, her son, all of them, that's why they want to go to war with, because they got a lot of dirty dealings in Ukraine. All that stuff they're blaming Trump on, they're guilty of. Oh, that Hunter, when the truth comes out, people are going to be shocked. These people need to go to jail, every one of them. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bill, every one of them need to be in damn jail.
Yeah. Did you ever shoot at the Red Army Fraction?
No. I met Russian soldiers before, years ago. They're just soldiers are soldiers. You know, you get these guys together over a beer, they're just like, they talk about music and partying and women. That's it.
Because there's people out there that maybe in the US that wouldn't know that American soldiers would know Russian soldiers, no?
Yeah, if you were to get some Russian soldiers in a club with American soldiers, put on some music, dance music, guess what? They're gonna have a good time. They're gonna have a good time. I'm serious. You have a good time. Just like when I went everywhere I go, I get along with soldiers of foreign countries, become good friends. Because they don't want to talk. You gotta remember, you know, Fran, these kids are 19, 20 years old. They got conscripted in the army. They love music too. You throw some rap music on, some hip hop, you know, they love, hey, this like, let's party. Ah, man, I remember in Germany, in Weingarten, went to this club called the Moby Dick Club.
Does your magazine and your company, Tackle the Muslim, produce soft air or sell soft air gear that you would have used in Grenada?
No, we don't. We do gear reviews. We test other companies' gear. We take a look at it and do stories on it. We don't produce any type of equipment.
But is there replicas of weapons that you would have used?
Oh yeah, they have airsoft weapons. They got different manufacturers. They have an airsoft weapon to every weapon known to man. They have even Western weapons. They got airsoft weapon for every gun you can think of.
But why would they look like? What's the sport good for civilians?
Well, it's like playing, you know, the game Call of Duty. It's like playing Call of Duty, but you know, you're doing it, you know, with airsoft weapons, strategy, team building, things like that.
So it's good for concentration and
yeah, concentration and team building. You know, it's a lot of fun. A lot of women play airsoft. You'd be surprised. They have a good time too.
Because in Germany it's very you have to there's a lot of restrictions on and I heard that in the US people got shot because they carried a replica and the police thought it was the original.
Yeah, that's kind of, you know, these kids get these guns and but they have orange tips on the end of them. But they like to spray paint the tips. You got to use common sense with these guns. You know what I'm saying? You got to use common sense. I treat an airsoft weapon like it's a real weapon.
Next movie you play in?
I don't know. I have to see what comes up. I'm trying to get on SWAT again, the TV show SWAT. But I have to talk to my agent, see what they got coming up with projects I can audition for.
And do they portray the truth, or is that all TV, or even more dramatic?
What's that? SWAT?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's over the top. That's dramatic. Yeah, that's all make believe. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this interview.
I'll upload today an interview, I think, or tomorrow, the next days, with some airsoft shooters from New York.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. So, but they're playing Japanese, basically.
Yeah, they're playing Japanese.
So
Matter of fact, I have two big airsoft games coming up, one in April and one in May. One is going to be in South Carolina, and the other is going to be in Victorville, California in May. Yeah, those two big airsoft events.
Mhm. So. You have a pretty girlfriend.
That's my daughter.
No, no, we have a one mutual friend. I cut this out, but I think we have one mutual friend, an Asian tango dancer. Okay, thank you so much. I'll let you go now for now.
Okay, I really enjoyed the interview, and I'll send you a link to the magazine for you to check it out. And I really enjoyed. Thank you for this interview.